Alright guys, today in this video I'm going to be showing you how to draw eyes, right? So we've already drawn the nose, we've already drawn the shape of the face and all of that. And you can see I've already have both eyes drawn here, right? And that's because I went ahead and drew these on this face that we've been working on because it's going to take me a little bit longer to draw both of these eyes than I would have time for. I'm trying to keep these videos pretty short. And so in order to keep these videos short, I went ahead and drew these out because, not only drawing them, but drawing them to match and spacing them out perfectly in, where they need to be, takes a little bit more time than I wanted to spend in the video. But I am going to show you on the next page, I'm going to draw a bigger eye kind of to show you all the little details, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. And so when you draw the eye, the first thing you want to start with is I just kind of do like a kind of an arch, right? Just kind of like a curved line going up like that, right? And you can see I kind of brought the end down, kind of it levels out a little bit. So I kind of have this curved line going up and over, right? Okay, and then underneath that, I'm going to have another curved line going down this way, like that. Now, at this point, it's kind of like, almost like a football shape. So if you just wanted to start, which is kind of a basic football shape, kind of like an oval with pointy ends, you could start with that. But one thing you want to make sure of, one thing I always try and do is make sure you want that top line to sort of overlap the bottom line, right? And so that's what I start with. It's just kind of this basic shape, okay? Inside here, I'm going to draw a circle. Of course, that's where your iris and your pupil is going to be, right? I like to make the circle big enough that the top and the bottom are sort of being cut off by the top and the bottom of the eye, like the two eyelids, right? So I've got sort of this circle kind of inside these two lines, right? And then inside that circle, I'm going to go ahead and draw the pupil. So I'm going to draw a smaller circle about that size, okay? Now, we're going to come back to this here in a second when we do some shading, but first I want to go ahead and draw the rest of the details. Now, a lot of people, when they draw eyes, they would stop here, right? But there's one really important thing that means the difference between a realistic eye and one that doesn't look realistic, okay? And that's going to be this second line up here, right? You're going to draw a second line for the eyelid. When you draw that eyelid, that's that little fold where your skin folds sort of around your eyeball, right? So it creates this little fold, creates this little eyelid, right? And you can see it starts off, these two lines are really close, and then as it arches up, it gets a little bit farther away, so it arches up and over, and then it sort of comes back down closer back to that line, right? And then down here, usually you'll have a smaller line for the bottom eyelid, something like that. Okay, now the edge of this line, a lot of times what I like to do is I like to take this line and then just kind of gently curve it up, and then that kind of starts where my eyelashes are going to be, right? So I just kind of bring my eyelashes up like that, right? And of course, depending on the kind of person you're drawing, a man or a woman, women usually have longer eyelashes, so you might make these longer, make them curl up a little bit more, depending on the kind of person you're drawing. And then down here, you usually have fewer and more spaced out eyelashes, right? Now, going back here, let's go ahead and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the pupil really dark, right? Because everybody's pupils are black, right? So everybody has a black pupil. And then the outer edge, the iris, everybody has different colored eyes, but since we're doing this just black and white, I'm just going to kind of shade this in a nice even gray. But before I do that, the little trick to making eyes look realistic is to create kind of a couple of little highlights where some light's going to be reflecting off of the eye, right? So I'm going to draw those little highlights, and in these two little highlights, I'm not going to do any shading. I'm going to leave these completely white, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and shade in the iris, and what I like to do, what makes it look more realistic, is if you start around the edges of the iris really dark, like that, and then as you shade in towards the pupil, it's going to get lighter. So it's going to go dark at the edge and get lighter. But again, remember, I'm not shading inside those circles because those are going to be my highlight. So that's kind of how you do, or that's how I do the pupil and the iris, right? And by leaving those two little circles, I've created this little kind of cool little highlight where it looks like light is reflecting off of the eye, right? And it just gives it that nice little touch, okay? And that's basically it. I mean, and you can draw eyes different shapes. You know, they may not all be this exact same shape. You know, you may do them, you know, more narrow. You know, you may do them more, you know, bigger. You know, there's different ways you can do it, but that's just sort of your basic shape. You know, a couple, you know, last little details you might do is you might draw a little curve here and a little curve here to sort of indicate, you know, the side of the eyeball itself. You may do a little shading, you know, along there, something like that. But that's basically it. That's basically the eyeball. So now the trick, the real trick when you're doing this is making these eyeballs match, right? When you draw the eyes, making them match. And that's something that takes time, right? And that's not really something that I can show you. And that's really the main reason why I drew these out first before the video, so that you could see, you know, how they're supposed to be spaced out, right? Because that's something that takes time. You know, I drew this one first, and then I probably erased this one 3 or 4 times before I finally decided, you know, it is what it is. And you can see it's still not exactly perfect as far as matching this eye. So that's the thing that's really going to take your time, you know, not just drawing a good realistic eye, but trying to draw 2 good realistic eyes that match each other, right? So there's, you know, that just takes time, that just takes practice. You know, a couple of little tricks, things you want to keep in mind. A lot of times what I'll do is when I draw one, I'll take a ruler and I'll try to level them out and make sure that they're the same, you know, that make sure this eye's not way up here or way down here, make sure it's level with this eye. You know, you can kind of measure out the distance from the corner of the eye here, corner of the eye here, and then one kind of general rule of thumb is the space in between eyes. You want the space to be about equal to one full-size eye, right? So if I were to take one of these, if I were to draw another eye in between, that would be about the distance. So they're about one eye distance apart, okay? And that's one kind of quick little rule of thumb or one little trick that you can use to sort of space these out. But that's pretty much it. You know, that's how you draw an eye. That's you know, I just kind of wanted to show you how to draw those little details, because that's probably the most detailed part of the whole face. Has the most little things you need to look at in order to draw realistically. Everything else is pretty easy if you can get the eyes right. Okay, so next video, we're going to look at the mouth, and then after that, we're going to look at you know, how to draw in some ears, some hair, do a little bit of shading on the face, and then there you go. All right, check out my next video for the mouth. All right. See you guys.